So it's like the 1st of May here in Wellington, so really it's the beginning of winter, isn't it? I don't think winter is coming. Yeah, I think we're definitely in for a long, hard winter. In fact, if we got many more days like this, I think it could all be almost unbearable, but I'll do my best to put up with it. But first I better make my way home and figure out what I'm going to do this evening. So apparently we're nearly at the beginning of winter. You wouldn't think it outside. It's an absolutely brilliant day, and so what I'm going to do, because it's such a good day, is sit inside and do some editing. So what I'm going to have a quick look at is how I do my titles with the animated text that you've just seen. A couple of people have asked me how I do that, what tools I use, so I'll show you. Let's have a look. So the good news is that it doesn't need a lot of equipment to do this. I'm just using an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil. You can use any tablet, any phone, whether you've got a pencil or just your finger. The only difference is the type of result you're going to get out of it. There's a few different pieces of software that we're using as well to do this kind of thing. I'm using Adobe Illustrator Draw on the iPad because it was free and it's convenient, and I can set a proper green background. Here's how I do it. Okay. So I'll just get the iPad started up and running here. There we go. Now I'm using Illustrator Draw here, as I said, because I can set up this nice green background here, and it's got layers, so I can create a separate layer for each of the pieces of content that I want to animate. The important thing about it is that it's got a screen recorder on the iPad too, so I can just double tap here, start the recording happening. If the screen recorder isn't available for you straight away on here, that's easy fixed. You can just go into the control panel for the control screen here and add the recording button to it really easily. Anyway, so I'll go back to the application. I've set up my first layer here, so I've got that recording, I've got my nice green background here, so I can just go ahead and start writing. Now I usually write fairly slowly. Thursday, 3rd of May. That's the first layer I'm going to do. Once I've got that done, just double tap that to hide it and create a new draw layer. This is why I use the Illustrator tool, is it just lets me do this quite painlessly. Now I just write my name in there. And the third layer I'm going to do is the title layer. One of the tricks is not to write your stuff too quickly. What we're going to do is when we pull that into the timeline, we'll compress it down a bit. So because I'm using the Mac and I'm using the iPad, I can just use the AirDrop, transfer it straight to the Mac, and there it is. Took a couple of seconds to move that video across. Okay, now that we've got the artwork and the animation copied to the Mac and we can put it into the timeline, what we're going to do is take the green component, run a chroma key on that one to make it transparent, and then we're going to use the color tools to shift the black outline to the color that we want. In the case of what I'm doing, it's sort of a yellowy orangey, quite fluoro color. Okay, so here we've got the 3 items in the timeline. We've got I've cut these out of the animation that we pulled over, and I've started each one just before the characters start, and then just run it as long as I can, so I've got plenty of tail on it for trimming in later on. The different links, because it takes a different amount of time to write each one, and as you can see, it's just the whole thing here, the whole screen of the iPad, and that's scaled into the timeline that I've got. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'll grab this one here. Now I'm in Final Cut Pro, so some of the controls will be different if you're used to using Premiere or some other editing tool. But you know, the same controls exist, they're just in a different format anyway. So I'm just going to click the transform tool. I will make that a bit larger like this. There we go. I'll just go most of the screen on it, and I'll just drag that down a bit in this case so that my text is going to be more centered on screen. Now that I've scaled that up, is just drag the out of the box keyer from Final Cut onto the clip, and straight away it gives me a very clean key, so I really like that one. And then I'm just going to come to the crop tool and bring that in on each side, just so that I get rid of those controls and any margin around it. There we go. I'm just going to bring it in just enough that it crops into the picture, but not get rid of anything I don't want to get rid of. So there we go. I've got my clean key, and then the last bit I'm going to do to that is change the text color. Just go into the color controls. I'll select my clip again and go into color, and I'm just going to cast that right up into here like that. That's all I need to do in there to give that quite a good bright fluoro yellow, which stands out against most of what I've got in here. So that'll do me for that one. Now the last bit I want to do for that clip, and I'll just come into the timeline a bit here. As you can see, I've got a number of clips underneath, and I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, so 16 clips there. So this first one, I want to just retime that, which is Command R, sorry, on the Mac, and I'm just going to retime that down so that it's the length of 4 of the underlying clips. There we go. And then I'll just bring the next one across, and I'm going to start that 2 clips later. Now what I can do here, because I've already set everything up for this first one, I can just copy that with Command C on the keyboard, and then I can go Shift Command Paste, which is a really cool tool in Final Cut, and it just lets me repeat all of the settings that I've done, or I can choose which ones to repeat or not, from the first clip onto the second clip. So it'll just assign all of the attributes and everything onto the next clip, and there straight away we've got the same thing, exactly what we want. I do need to tweak that a little bit, so what I'll do is I'll come back to the clip tools and the transform tool, and I just need to drag that up so that everything is within the confines of my 235:1 ratio that I've set up for this particular video. So just shrink that down a little bit and drag it up. That's all good. I do need to alter the retiming on that a bit as well, so I will just hit Command R again for retime and bring that into the same length of 4 of the clips underneath. And then I can just grab my final clip, which I've put over here, pull it back into the correct starting point that I want, 2 clips later, and I'll just perform exactly the same function on that one as well. There we go, and retime that one in so it's the same length, and there you go. So just need to move that one up just a fraction as well. And there we go. So that's nice and simple, very quick. Once you've done the first one, set everything up, then you can just paste all those attributes onto your second and third clip. Your key's done exactly the same. So it's just basically green screening in a color cast and a little bit of cropping and moving. So there you go, that's how I do my titles each time. As you can see, it doesn't take a particularly long time, and it's quite effective, and you end up with this really neat animated effect. And there you go. And a great shot of me with my mouth hanging open. Okay, so that's how I do my titles.